welcome everybody to the first of 8 webinars. So these webinars follow what I call the pagan calendar. So you'll be familiar with the winter and summer solstice and the spring and autumn equinox. We just had the spring equinox last week. And in between those, at what we call the cross-quarter days, there are 4 more festivals. They're called the fire festivals. And you may recognize Candlemas, beginning of February, called Imbolc. You recognize May Day or Beltane and the Maypole. You might recognize the word Lammas, or which happens beginning of August. And then you'll all be familiar with Halloween or Samhain, which happens at the end of October. So last year I did a presentation for each of those 8 festivals, and I covered like a whole huge range of topics, from how to keep yourself in tip-top vibration to quantum, like how to live in a quantum reality. It really was varied. But this year I'm going to do something slightly different. So I'm going to look at the astrology of this moment in time. So this moment that we started this webinar, 7:30, I have created the chart for this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through some of what this astrology is telling us and how we need to best prepare ourselves for what's coming. But I'm going to do it in the way that I would teach it. So you're going to get like a bit of an experience of how I teach astrology now, because I've now started teaching a very short astrology course, and you'll start to get a feel for it as we go along, and I'll tell you a bit more about it as we raise your hand if you would like to be even wiser. You have to give a good stretch. It's one of the important meridians. It's good for you to give it a good stretch. And then raise your hand again if not only would you like to be even wiser, but you want to be having, because making you have more fun. It's like you're having more fun too. So raise your hand again and say, yes, that's exactly what I want. I want to be wiser so I can have more fun. Awesome. So this is the chart for 7:30 this evening. Now I'm going to use my cursor. I hope you can see it. It's like a turquoise circle. This is the band of the zodiac that goes around our solar system. They're constellations of stars that in the old days were given names and stories to go with them. And within that, we have these symbols represent the planets in our solar system, all 10 of them. Now, if you imagine this is us in the middle, and then we're watching all these planets going round and round and round. It's like a perpetual clock. And each one has its own hand, and they all go at different speeds. And from Earth, we look to them, and we look and we see which sign of the zodiac is behind them. So here it's Taurus. And the moon is in front of Scorpio. And that tells us something about the way that those energies are expressing themselves throughout the whole of our cosmos, and definitely affecting us as well. And these colored lines represent how the planets are talking to each other. It's the angles they're making with each other. We don't have a red that goes all the way across, but that's where you've got 2 opposite each other, like with the full moon. The sun and the moon are bang opposite each other. So we don't have one of those, but these are all different types of angles that they're making with each other, and they all have a different expression, a different way of talking. So this is the chart for 7:30 this evening. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use it as a way to show you how it's being expressed in the world at the moment. So I'm not going to go through the whole chart because it would just take too long. I've picked 4 points. But first of all, you need to understand that everything can work at a different frequency. You may have seen this before, the emotional frequency scale. So things can work at a very low frequency. It's like, you know, when we feel really bad about ourselves, that's a very low emotional frequency, and that's what we're emitting out into the world. Or we can be at a very high emotional frequency where we're like, you know, we feel great, we feel, you know, like joyful and peaceful, and that's what we're emitting out into the world. Well, in the same way, everything in the birth chart can act anywhere on that spectrum between very low emotional frequency to very high emotional frequency. So what I'm going to show you first is what it looks like when it's very low emotional frequency. So the first thing we always look at in the chart is the sun. This symbol represents the sun. And it's in Aries. Aries is ruled. Oh, hello.
Oh.
Ah, hello. Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. So the sun in Aries, well, we see it, we know this is what's going on in the world. And it's not just the sun, because the North Node is there as well, and that's very much our collective spiritual direction. And Mercury is there at the moment as well. So there's all this very intense Aries energy going on. And at its lowest vibration, it's aggressive and warlike. You know, it's people fighting for what they can get. So then we have this down here, Venus and Saturn in Pisces. And Pisces is it's one of the healers. It's all about love, and it's in the house of health and service. But Saturn will squash anything beautiful if we let it. And it can feel very much like this top-down authority, like this inhibition, this squashing. And that's exactly how people are feeling who are working in the NHS, for example. You know, this is where we offer our service in this country, and people are feeling inhibited from doing their job, unable to do their job properly. And then we've got Pluto down here in Aquarius. So Aquarius, one of its things is about technology, and Pluto is about the abuse of power at a very low vibration. And, you know, we're experiencing these fears, you know, that we're going to be taken over by AI, you know, by this power that we have no control over. Yeah, and it feels very real, and it feels quite scary. And, you know, and a lot of us will be like, you know, well, you know, we're taken over by AI. And so, you know, there is a genuine sense amongst us that we are, you know, some of us, a lot of us are quite afraid of this. And then finally, the last one I'm going to look at is this one, Uranus and Jupiter in Taurus. One of Taurus's things is about money. And it's in the area of the chart that is about big money, corporation type money. Jupiter wants to make everything bigger, and is very much about some sort of leadership. Jupiter's a god of, you know, Zeus, who is the god of the gods. And Uranus wants something different, and it also likes new technology. So it probably likes that AI as well. And so we're already hearing about something called the digital pound. And it's making us feel quite like, hang on a minute, let's start using cash, and we're going to keep cash in the system. And this digital pound has the nickname of Britcoin. So I quite like that. So there's a lot of fearful stuff going on. We see it going on around us. Whether we don't engage in it in ourselves, we still know it's happening out there somewhere. Okay, it might not be happening in our little environment, but it's happening out there somewhere. And most of us, it's like it is impacting our lives. So where would we rather be? Where would we like to be? So I'm going to show you how all those 4 things can actually work at a very high vibration. And it's basically just a choice. So first of all, the sun in Aries, it's like it's that first sign of the zodiac. You know, it's when we move the spring equinox. We've just had it now. We've just moved into Aries. It's spring. It's everything bursting into life. It's just beautiful, and it's just so dynamic, and it's that feeling where you get like loads and loads of ideas, like sparks coming off a fire. And Aries is a fire sign. So you got all these sparks coming off, and it's like all these ideas, and it also very much that first point of Aries, the very start of the zodiac, it's that point of conception, you know, where the egg and the sperm meet. So you've got all these millions and millions of sperm, you know, they're all excited. And then just only takes one idea to land. And so that sort of that enthusiasm, that excitement, that fun, that play, that being inspired is very a high vibration Aries type of experience. And we've all experienced it, haven't we? Yeah, we've all experienced it at times. We're familiar with that experience. And then this one, because it's the house of service, and my God, does Pisces like to be of service. You know, it's the most spiritual sign in the zodiac in terms of sitting and meditating. And Saturn, used at its very highest vibration, is awesome at planning and organizing. So it's like, okay, I think I'm going to set up a healing center. So what do I need to do first? Okay, just need to do that first. And then suddenly, with the Pisces energy, it just starts rolling and unfolding because Pisces energy is so magical. It's the purest essence of creative energy. And I'm going to talk more about it later. So you can see how it's like, how can I be of service? What am I here for? What am I here to do? And you just like get an idea, just follow it, just go with it, go with that Aries energy and just take that first step. That's all Aries asks of us, is the first step. And then the universe will take over because we've shown a commitment. We've bonded that egg and that sperm together and they're off. So that's very high vibe, the Saturn and Venus. And then the Pluto in Aquarius. Aquarius is all about community. And Pluto at its very highest level is about power, but it's about being empowered. And this is very much in the house of what we call home. So this is very much about being more community minded, looking after each other, you know, shopping local, growing our own food, becoming more together and becoming more self-sustaining as, you know, an extended family type community. That's sort of very high vibe, Pluto and Aquarius, amongst lots of other things too, but that's one of them. And then finally, Taurus is all about abundance. It's the earth. It's the next sign after Aries. It's when everything, it's all the leaves are coming out, everything is coming out, everything is just, all the blossom is out and the insects are all out and they're all fertilizing. You know, it's abundant. It's that promise of abundance. And Jupiter just wants to make everything bigger, just wants even more of it. And Uranus says, oh, we're going to come up with some unexpected ways of how to achieve it, of how to have that experience, because Taurus is very sensual. It's like we have to feel it. You know, we have to feel luxurious in whatever it is that we're wearing. We have to feel it in order to attract it. So all of these are much more hopeful. I hope you would agree. Raise your hand if you would agree that those are much more hopeful and that really that's where you want to be. So how are we going to get there? So I looked in the chart and I thought, how are we going to get there? What's in the chart? And two things struck me. One is this one here, Mercury in Aries, but it doesn't connect to them. It's not talking to anybody. Ah, there's another one, Neptune. It's not talking to anybody. And when we get planets that are not talking to anybody, it means that we can be in one mode, all this lot, and then we can jump to these other modes and have a play in there, and then go, okay, I've done that, and then we can jump back again. So it sort of gives us a choice of where we can be. And in fact, we've got three choices going on here. Now, Mercury in Aries, its highest vibration is to play. You know, Mercury's quick, it's like all over the place, it loves communicating, and Aries is a sign of the child, you know, it loves to play. At low vibration, it can be very argumentative and very selfish. And then Neptune, at its highest vibration in Pisces, remember I said about Pisces, it's like you can go to this other realm. You can go to this imaginal realm with Pisces, and you can just imagine things. You can go, how would I do that? How would I like that to be? Oh, yes, I'd like it to look like that. Okay, I'll go and do that now. And we'd go and do it with that nice solid Taurian energy. So this Neptune in Pisces is asking us to go to the imaginal realm, to access those imaginal ideas. And I'm going to go into why shortly. But first of all, at its very lowest, whoa, it's not nice. It's like being in a fog where you can just about see your hand in front of your face and you have no idea where you are contextually and which way you have to go. It feels quite scary. And I like this quote from George Bernard Shaw. He's the one who wrote the story behind My Fair Lady, because he said, you know, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we've stopped playing. And for me, playing and creativity are connected because they both require the imaginal realm. And that's where I like to access my creativity. And it's where this presentation has come from. So why is this imaginal realm important? Well, Einstein said he never got anything new from his thinking mind. Everything came from his imaginal realm. Okay, and he played a lot, right? So he would like think, how would I do this? How would I do that? And he'd come up with ideas. Professor George Hand at the end of the 60s was asked by NASA to create an experiment, a test that they could apply to their workers to find out how creative they were. And he thought to himself, I'm going to try this on children. And he discovered that 98% of 5-year-olds are creative geniuses. But when he gave it to 10-year-olds, it was down to 60%. And when he gave it to 15-year-olds, it was down to 30%. And when he did it for a cross spectrum of adults, it was only 2%. Now, what is it that 5-year-olds do that adults tend not to? They play and they live in an imaginal realm. They create stories and then they put them into mud and sticks and things like that. Oops, that shouldn't be there. So it's also important because raise your hand if you've heard of the law of attraction. I'm sure most of you have heard of this. It's where we attract to us at the energetic level at which we are holding ourselves. So remember I talked about, you can either be at a very low emotional frequency or you can be a very high emotional frequency. And wherever we can bring ourselves onto that scale, that's what we will emit, and that's what we will bring back. So if we can imagine beauty and joy and love and, you know, everything that we love and gives us a sense of joy, we just imagine those things, then that is what we're more likely to attract to us. Because really, our mind doesn't actually know the difference between what we imagine and what's actually real. And then finally, as I said about this emotional frequency scale, because it means that we start to understand that we have a choice as to where we place ourselves, and that actually all we have to do is imagine it. And it's real. That's very powerful skill to be able to do with our imagination. So why is the Imagine All Round? Why is it really important that we do it now? Well, we all know we've got a mental health crisis. Even before COVID, the NHS said that 70% of adults in this country were on antidepressants. And yet the NHS know that creativity is better to help people with depression than pharmaceuticals. So even they know that. So, you know, like we're being encouraged more and more and more. I mean, I don't have one, and I don't actually know anybody who does have one, but, you know, you see them, you know, on adverts, and I think they were advertised a lot for Christmas. But, you know, people in these sort of more virtual reality worlds, and even television, you know, is guilty of that. Because, you know, it's like when you read a book, you create your own pictures, don't you? And that's why it's sometimes disappointing to go and see the film, isn't it? Because you're like, not like how I imagined it. I liked it better how I imagined it. But we have now so many images given to us that we don't need to use our imagination much. And so we're becoming less and less creative because we're not really imagining anything different, or all we're doing is creating what is being given to us. There's not like an autonomy thing about it. LinkedIn did a survey a few years ago. Some of you are probably familiar with LinkedIn. It's the sort of workers' social media platform, if you like. And they interviewed employers and employees, and they discovered that of the employers, 80% said that the first criteria they were looking for was creativity. You know, that was their highest criteria now. But when they interviewed the employees, they said, most of them said, I can't remember the exact numbers now, but it was pretty low, 20 or 30% said, well, where I work, it's still very much about productivity and not creativity. So, you know,
creativity,
yeah.
control.
And then some of you may have heard very much about the fact that we're living in more of like a quantum reality, that we're accessing quantum abilities, or all quantum means is a unit of measurement. That's all it means. It's just that it's got into this thing that it's to do with in physics, and it's to do basically where an electron can jump from one energy level up to another energy level. It doesn't have to go slowly like that. It can just go like that. And this is what is starting to happen to us. You know, the astrology is showing to us that we're just speeding up, we're speeding up so much. And that, you know, same with that emotional frequency scale, we can jump from one emotional frequency. We can just go, oh, I'm not going to feel like this. I choose not to feel like this. I'm going to feel high vibration. Okay, I'm just going to imagine I'm outside and I'm listening to the birds and it's beautiful and I'm in the woods. Yep, okay, good, I'm there. You know, it's like that is a quantum jump, and we're all learning how to do that. And astrology is just such an amazing way of describing what those quantum jumps would look like. So you might be thinking, well, why? Well, to tell you the truth, you're probably thinking, why are you listening to me? And I'd love to know a bit of your story, because that's one of the little criticisms I get from people is we don't know your story. So I'm going to share with you how I got into astrology. You might relate to some of it. And but before we do that, I just want you to have a little think about, have you ever felt completely lost. Like you're literally in that bog and you just don't know what is going on, where to go, who to turn to. You just don't even know yourself anymore. So I was about 28 and I was traveling with two women. I'm going to call them Anne and Jane. And we were traveling. The idea was we were going around the world, but we'd got as far as Edinburgh to Siena. We were in the mountains outside Siena, and we were busking, and we had Anne had two little girls of her own, so we had two little kids with us. And so we traveled in our van. It wasn't one of those, it was a much tattier Ford Transit. And we used to live in this sort of like handmade sort of structure that you sort of bent over. It wasn't a teepee, it was something called a bender. Canberra doesn't have benders. And we spent a lot of time sitting around the fire, cooking over the fire. We very much lived outdoors. And we busked, yeah, so we played a lot of music. So we've been in this spot for a few days, and things have started to get quite uncomfortable. I get to this point where it's like I can't breathe even. I get so like this. It's almost like I daren't move. I am so sort of like terrified of what is going to be thrown at me. And you know, and it's like I was trying my best to be present because wow, it's just so beautiful here. You know, it's like everything was sparkling because it was November time and it was like frosty and there was a full moon and it was just so still and so quiet. It was just so beautiful. And then suddenly, oh, for goodness sake, Deborah, why can't you ever say anything? Honestly, you never say anything. You just sit there. You're just all dumb and you never react. You never do anything. Literally, I can't bear it anymore. Have you ever felt like, you know, you're just going mad? Just going mad. Didn't know how to deal with it. Just felt so bad. About a year or so later, I am staying with a friend in a Victorian castle, and he had a tiny little apartment up on the 5th floor in the turret, and a little just heated by this little coal fire. And we're sitting again, it's about November time, and we're sitting in his little room by the fire, and he's a musician, so there's some, you know, really funky, lovely, jazzy type music going on in the background, and he's got sparkling blue eyes, and a very interesting shaped nose and bold, a bit like a sort of more fairy version of Yul Brynner. And we sat there and I was telling him, because he knows these other two women, and I was saying, you know, like, it's I still don't feel like I've recovered. I don't know what's going on for me. I just feel so lost. I feel so confused. Now he's an astrologer, and he said to me, let's have a look at your chart and see what's going on. So he drew up my chart and he said to me, oh, you're having your Saturn return. I was like, he said, Saturn takes nearly 30 years to go all the way around the chart. And you're 29, 30. So you're in your Saturn return. And he said, this can feel really hard. This can feel so hard. He said, for some people, their Saturn return is really, really hard. And he said, some people don't even make it through it. He said, and yours is a particularly hard one and a particularly long one, but you will come out. You will come out of the tunnel. And then I'm sort of looking at my chart and He said, you've got Venus and Mercury, 11.5 degrees of Pisces. You'd make a good astrologer. That's the astrology degree. I went, okay. He said, look, I've got books, shelves of books, and I'll teach you how to draw up a chart. And every time somebody comes in to the flat, you can ask them to do their chart and ask them to tell you about it. And so that's what I did. Now, it wasn't easy, but you know how like you get that feeling when suddenly just everything makes sense and you've got that new idea, you know, like that new Aries idea. And you're like, yeah, okay, this might be something that engaged me. This might be something I'm excited about. So not long after that, I was so into it and that I signed up for a diploma course. And it was amazing. It was amazing. I was so fortunate in the school that I chose, and I chose it very intuitively. And it really helped me to discover much more about who I am. Now, it took me 7 years. But by the end of it, I was a good astrologer, and it was very expensive. And then I started practicing what I was learning. I'd go to these like hippie educational camps. A lot of you I know from these camps. And I started teaching what I was learning in the astrology. And I discovered, because I was taught to learn astrology in a very playful way. We'd go and have these summer schools and we'd all have to make masks and put on hats and scarves and things like that. So I started getting people to play with the characters and, you know, get them to dress up a little bit. You know, I've got a huge collection of hats. I've got an enormous dressing up wardrobe. I get people to act out these characters and really embody them and really live them. And it's so helpful for people to actually then understand what these characters and what all the astrology symbols mean and what they feel like. And then last year, I got invited by MTV to come and run an astrology retreat for their top reality TV show, Teen Mum. And I took all my dressing up wardrobe, we did the astrology, and it was just this one girl who came, and I was shocked. It was like she just underwent such a radical transformation in about 24 hours. As soon as she saw her chart and she saw how she was living it out and how the way she wanted to live it out in her dreams, and that actually she could do that, she was over. It was incredible. And we just had so much fun dressing up and acting things out and playing. And now I've actually created my own astrology course to teach to other people because I am passionate about this, about astrology getting out into the world. It is such a simple language. It's all based in symbols. And we're all used to symbols as children. We use symbols, storytelling characters all the time. And, you know, a lot of people say, well, I can't, you know, I haven't got the money, I haven't got the time to study astrology. I can't do maths. But it's not like that anymore. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the course. But let's just go back to that question. Have you ever felt completely lost? And I would like you to see how, by understanding your own birth chart and those of people around you, that it can help give you a clarity and it can help you understand at which points you want to be raising an emotional frequency and when's the best time to do them. So I'm going to go through I'm going to look at the sun that was in that chart for this evening. The sun is always the main character. You know, it's our brightest light in the sky. And if you all know, you know, what sign of the zodiac you are, then that's where the sun was at the time you were born. So we're going to have a look at the sun. And I'm going to show you how that is manifesting in the world and how we can use it individually to actually raise our own emotional frequency, what that would look like, how we could imagine it. It's like, oh, yes, I could imagine that. Okay, then you'd be more likely to do it. And I'm going to use the structure of the course to show you how I then work out what the points, each point, each planet in the chart, what that means and how it's expressing itself. So there's 3 learning styles in the Style Wisdom course. I call them the wild, weird, and wise learning styles. And they're all quite different. And, you know, we all have a different learning style. But so, you know, some of you will resonate more with one and some more with another. But basically, I broke it down into 3. So the first one I call wild. For me, wild is about freedom. It's about being able to allow our mind to ask whatever questions it wants, you know, to be free to explore. And in the wild learning style, it's very much based on research, and I mean practical research, so asking people questions and getting their feedback, and then also very much on intuition. What does that make me think? Oh, yeah, okay, maybe it's that. And in order to really develop this learning style, we use what I call the Uranus Space Uploader, because basically what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to free our minds from this constriction of our mental level and get it out into space, where everything is possible and everything is available and all information is available to us. We just have to ask the right questions. So the next learning style I call weird, and it's the Old English spelling, which actually means extrasensory. And this requires 2 skills. It's about experience. So it's about experiencing things so that we have an innate knowing about them. And it's also about sensing things so that we know it's like we're having a sensual relationship with our world. And in order to develop these skills, we're looking at the Neptune's Dream Navigator, because Neptune has no boundaries. You know, it's like dream world where you can go wherever you want. You know, there is no boundaries to the imaginal realm. We can go wherever we want. We can experience whatever we want in that imaginal realm and in the real world too, of course. And then the final learning style is wise, because we do need some knowledge, you know, we do need some skills. And the learnings you get in this one are symbolism, because astrology is very based in symbolism. You'll see as we go through how I use symbols, and of course symbols tell stories. And then the other one is knowledge, because there are certain facts and things that or techniques that we want to be learning, and we gain this through Pluto's story performer. So what we're looking for is that a birth chart, a chart, you can see it as a story. It's like it has a beginning and it has a journey that goes through it. And by asking the right questions and by sort of understanding some of the experiences and the sensations, then we can start to unpick that story. But we do need to know the skills on how to actually create the story, the framework for which to go into the imaginal realm. And that's what we do in the wise learning style. Being silly Billy. Lovely. Okay, so coming back to the chart for this evening, we're going to look specifically at this sun here, this red circle with the dot in it. And, you know, as I said before, it's our essence, it's our light, it's around which we revolve, it's the essence of who we each are. The little symbol next to it is not actually a physical body. It's a place in the sky, and it's called the North Node, and it represents our spiritual direction. So we got the sun, it's like the essence of who we are, with our spiritual direction. You can see how important this is, and how important it is that we know how we are using it. Are we using it in a warlike way, or an antagonistic way? Or are we using it in an initiating, creating new ideas and exploratory type of way? So, but there's other things that we can learn about it. And the first thing we're going to learn is from the Neptune Dream Navigator. And these are the different skills that you're going to learn. Now, obviously, I haven't got time to go through all of them and teach them all tonight. But for this evening, we're going to look at the first one, den. What do we mean by a den? Have you ever, like, as a kid, you know, made a den out of a table and put the, you know, the tablecloth over the top of it, and you've gone inside and you've hidden, haven't you? Yeah, and it's like, well, that's the sort of den I'm actually talking about. And we have the chart can be seen as a den, and we can actually call it a cave. And over here is the entrance to the cave, and this is the back of the cave. So from the back of the cave, we're sort of looking out at this light that comes in through the entrance. So that's a bit like I was in the back of Hetty Pegler's Tump the other day, right in the back of this Neolithic tomb. And I was looking out and I was like, oh yeah, it's like being in the back of the cave. And it's like, oh, I'm hiding in the back of the cave. Or planets can be, so they can be at the back of the cave, like the moon is quite near the back of the cave, so it's hiding, or can be right up front, the gatekeeper to the cave. A bit like this, I think it's a badger hole, and it's got these plant standing like a sentinel in the entrance. Now, this particular plant is dog's mercury, which is very toxic. So remember, Aries is ruled by the god of war, Mars. You know, it's got its defenses. It knows how to attack. It knows how to defend and how to protect. Just put a poison plant in the front. With this chart, the first thing that the outside world, outside the cave, meets is this sun node. Now, when we meet somebody for the first time, we make an instant impression. I mean, millisecond. It's like our energy vibrations, energy fields go like that, and we go, yes or no. So whatever level, emotional frequency that we are holding for that space is what is going to emanate out and be met by the world. And equally, we will attract that energy space. That's our gatekeeper. The gatekeeper will decide what it allows in and what it won't allow in, but it can only decide to allow in at a frequency that already knows, that it already understands. So it will just allow in what it can, whatever matches its frequency in that moment. Now, I really encourage my students to use different objects, like material objects or diagrams or drawings or whatever, to help symbolize the characters in the birth chart. And one of the ones I like to use is wildflowers. So for me, the fact that a dog's Mercury sitting there and it's toxic is like, you know, really significant. So everything in astrology, you can associate it with symbols, days of the week, moon day, Monday, geometry, crystals, colors, plants. I like to use plants. And I encourage people, you know, like sometimes you can just get a handbag and pull out a pen. Oh, yes, that's Mercury. Or, you know, like your toothbrush, you know, oh, yeah, that's Virgo, you know, type of thing. And it's just a fun thing to do. And it really helps to get the images of those planets and signs embedded in your brain. So the next one we're going to look at is from the Pluto Story Performer. And we're going to look at stars. Now, the stars in the show are the planets. So we're going to look at the sun, which obviously is our main star. And there are 10 stars, and the sun is obviously the one that everything else goes around, isn't it? But so it's not really a planet, but in astrology, we call it a planet. And of course, we're observing it going around us, which is a bit different. It adds a few other nuances to astrology, which I'm not going to go into today. So the symbol for the sun is the circle, a red circle with a dot, because it encompasses the wholeness of everything, all that it is, because everything is one energy. You know, we are intricately linked to the sun. We cannot escape, you know, we wouldn't want to, you know, everything is revolving around the sun. And within ourselves, it represents our essence. So, and it also represents our mind. And the sun also is very much to do with will, how we can actually make something happen. And for me, the flower I like is the dandelion, because the sun is ruled by the sign Leo, which obviously is the lion, and dandelions are the teeth of the lion. And of course, you know, it looks so vibrant and sunshiny and round, you know, so it really, for me, carries that sun quality. And they sort of poke out of the grass, don't they? They sort of jump out at you. You can't help but miss them. They're so bright. And now we're going to look at the Pluto Story Performer. And in here, we're going to look at outfits. So these are the skills that are aligned with symbolism and knowledge. So we've got the sun, and from where we're looking, it looks as if it's in the sign of Aries, yeah? So we're going to look at, there's 12 outfits, 12 signs of the zodiac, and we're going to look at the Aries sign. It's the first sign of the zodiac, yeah? It's the first sign of spring. It's that sort of initiating energy. It's ruled by the ram. You think about this, you know, this warrior, this head-butting ram, you know, how, you know, when they get together, you know, it's that very Martian warlike energy. And this is a symbol for it. Now it's in red because it's a fire planet. All the planets split into 4 elements: fire, earth, air, and water. And this one is a fire element. So you think about fire. Yeah, it's quick. You think about the sparks going off of fire. And that's very Aries sort of energy. But because it's the first sign of the zodiac, it's also very playful. It's psychologically, it's the child. It's the essence of the child. And so I always see Aries as very playful and like just initiating, like it's got just always got loads of new ideas. And because it's ruled by fire and it's about spring, you know, the gorse is out now. And, you know, to me, it has that sort of yellow fiery quality, but it's got these prickles, doesn't it? I mean, you don't want to be touching gorse. That hurts. You don't want to wind an Aries up. That's not nice. I can hear an Aryan laughing in the background. So before we do the final little example of how I teach what we're actually being, you know, the using the structure of the course to describe what's actually going on at the moment. And I sort of left you a little bit on tenterhooks, because we've got this thing at the entrance of the cave, and it's the light and it's the sun. And then we've got this Aries, childlike, playful sort of energy. Before I give you the final technique, I just like to take a few minutes to tell you a little bit about the course, because I have the next Star Wisdom Astrology course starting really soon. So on this, you will get all that you need to know to unlock the key to astrology. You'll get what we call the art of astrology. So that's more like the intuitive sort of level. You'll get the language of astrology. Remember, that's very much about the symbols. And you'll get the skills. And I've kept the skills to an absolute minimum. You know, the absolute basics of what, in fact, I'm not teaching you anything less than what I use all the time to read charts. So what it basically involves is about 10 about 20-minute pre-recorded video lessons. So it means that you can watch the lesson, you can stop it to digest it, maybe there's a little something to do, and you can watch it again if you didn't quite understand it. And then 2 weeks later, we will have an hour live group coaching call where you can ask me questions and say, well, I didn't quite understand that. And, you know, in doing that, you'll actually get a lot more information coming out of my mouth. And it's a way as well for you to get to know each other. I'm going to keep the group very small. So 6 people maximum. So it's an opportunity for you to get to know each other, and an opportunity for you to look at each other's charts and to hear each other's questions and go, oh yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. And then in addition, this all takes 4 months. So it's a coaching call every 2 weeks. And in addition to that, towards the beginning of the course, you're going to get a really in-depth personal reading with me. So this is a minimum of 90 minutes, could go 2 hours. And what I will do is I will describe your chart to you using all the techniques that I'm teaching you. So you can see how they all fit together, and you can see your energy pattern, and you can see how your story unfolds through the chart. You're also going to get a bonus video on the step-by-step instructions on how to able to access almost unlimited. You can store 100 free star maps just on your phone or your laptop, whatever. There's also I like to have a WhatsApp group where we can share information, where you can ask questions, where you can talk to each other. And also in the WhatsApp group, I post the daily astrology tip, which already goes out in 9 different places on social media, but it's nice to have it in your own little group. You know, you don't have to go looking for it. And, you know, it's a tip in terms of how to live your life, it more aligned with the astrology of the day. But also I talk about it in a way that is quite instructive as well. So, you know, it helps you to learn astrology too, and you get one of those every day. So it's starting on Wednesday, April the 17th, with a group call where we get to know each other and say hello and share charts. And I will release the first video lesson then, and it's from 8 till 9 p.m. Now it will be recorded and only for access within the group. So if you missed one, you know, you can always watch the recording, and you can still ask questions in the group as well. So, oh, there was another slide. Oh, no, it's going backwards. Hang on. Oh, no. Okay. So who is this Star Wisdom Astrology course for? Who tends to benefit from knowing astrology? Well, therapists can find it really useful because it's a way of really homing in very quickly on the energy pattern of someone. Yeah, we can feel it, but here you get more more meat on the bones, if you like, get a bit more detail in terms of what actually might be going on. And it's very fast, and you just ask the right questions and you're in there. Parents, you know, what do your children need? How can you best support them so that they actually are able to grow into the highest vibration, the highest emotional frequency of their charts, but also so that things don't get neglected. You wouldn't believe how many people, you know, like, are really good at singing, and they loved it as a kid, and then they just got neglected, you know, because it wasn't encouraged, it wasn't seen as something really important. A team leader, you know, if you're holding a team together, it's so useful to have a basic understanding of people's astrology, and also to use astrology when you start a meeting, like I've used it to start this, because it can give you so many signposts as to what it is that you're looking at and where you need to put your focus and what you might need to watch out for. So yeah, charts can be really useful in teams. And also if you're a spiritual teacher, because it's such an incredible language to translate insights and intuition. And also because it's like you get these feelings of what's going on, and then you look at the chart and you go, oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay, yep, yep. And then you have a language then in order to share it. And people love astrobabble. Everybody loves listening to the language of astrology. So this course is also for you if you like to learn through play. You know, like I talked earlier, through like objects and things like that, and dressing up and making masks and things, or through exploring. It's, you know, like you genuinely want to know, you know, what would that feel like? What would Venus and Scorpio really feel like? You know, and so you'll go and talk to people and find yourself a Venus and Scorpio and get them to tell you what it feels like. Experientially, it's like you want to really understand what water feels like, you know, so you're going to spend a lot of time by water, because water rules our emotions. And you know, every element, 4 elements, has 3 signs in it, so there's 3 water signs. So it's really good to have that experiential understanding of what water is about. And of course, if you if you're good at self-inquiry, if that's something important to you, if you're like, well, why do they do that? Or how can I not do that? Or how can I make that different? Yeah, because when you look in your chart, then you can go, oh yeah, I can see maybe I'm using that at quite a low emotional frequency. And actually, what would that look like at a higher one? Oh yeah, I could do that. And so yeah, it's really helpful to self-inquiry. It's not for you if you prefer to learn on your own. I will at some point release the videos just as a course on their own, but they're not ready to go yet. They need a bit more work, a bit more refining on them to be used to work on your own. I don't encourage using books, because this is an experiential course. It's about what you learn, what you experience, what you've worked out. You know, honestly, it'd just be so overwhelmed with different astrologers' perspectives on things. Great, once you understand your own, then it's interesting to hear others and go, oh yeah, I can see where that matches with mine. Oh yeah. But you don't want to be taking theirs as gospel, because that's just their experience. It's not the truth. It's not your truth. So I don't encourage reading from books while we're on the course. If you love writing essays, well, you can write them, but nobody's going to read them. So no, there's no, like, you know, most of these diploma courses require a lot of writing. You know, it's like a little mini thesis for each assignment. And also, if you think that you'd rather learn astrology by rote, you know, like Venus and Scorpio is this, and this, and you get a list of 6 words that describes what Venus and Scorpio is, because you won't get any of that. And you could get quite frustrated. It's all about you finding it for yourself. So I like to think of it as an adventure in consciousness. And the Star Wisdom course is unique. There is not another course like it. Well, not to my knowledge anyway. It's short, it's 4 months. The shortest you can do on a diploma course is 2 years. I took 7. I knew people who did 15. And I've narrowed it down to 10 techniques. They're just the ones that I use. Don't use anything else. But there's actually like 3,000 different astrological techniques, and it's mind-boggling. And every astrologer will use different ones. But once you've got these 10 basics, if your interest is to go and explore what other techniques, then yeah, off you go. That's loads of astrologers do that. They just build up loads of techniques, and other astrologers go and explore something else. We each end up taking it to where we're interested. As I said, no maths, no reading, no tests, and it also doesn't cost £3,000, which is what the main course that's been running. It's based in this country. It's been running since the end of the 40s. Is the Faculty of Astrology diploma, and at the moment that costs £3,000. So I'd like to introduce you to Sarah, who I happen to know is here tonight. And Sarah came on my last course, and this was what she had to say. She said it's given her like a personal compass. So your chart is like a map. It's a map of the moment that you were born. And if you're understanding the language and the journey of the story, so you come to understand the map. It's also like an energy blueprint. So she calls it like having a compass. In order to accelerate, and I love this, her expansion into consciousness. And that's what we're all doing. That's what we're all involved in at this particular, especially this particular moment in time. The energy shifts we're going through are just like nothing we've ever experienced before. It's so exciting. And astrology is just such an amazing way of going, that's what's going on. Okay, so I need to focus on this and I need to focus on that in order to get me aligned to where it is. Now, it will automatically impact you. You can't help it. The planets are impacting us all the time. It's just that if we're a bit more conscious of how they're impacting us, then we can make more deliberate, more conscious, higher emotional frequency choices. So why learn astrology? Well, I think I've already given you quite a few good reasons. But it's like having an intuitive gift where you can actually interpret this constantly moving pattern, this constantly sacred geometry of our cosmos, in which that we are embedded, as without, so within, macro, micro, as above, so below. We are part of this cosmic pattern. And I love this. Richard Tarnas has actually really made himself a name for himself recently. He's a professor in an American university, went to Harvard, and he's done this incredible series called Changing of the Gods, and this whole historical series of the outer planets of Pluto and Uranus. It's absolutely fascinating. And he said, astrology is a symbolic language, and we all know how to read symbols. It's almost like the human brain understands symbols. And he calls it the language of the soul of the world, which I think is really lovely. So the final skill is in the Neptune Dream Navigator, and it's called Recipe. So we've looked at our first 3. Yeah, we know we've got this cave, and we've got this character sitting in the cave as a gatekeeper. It's an attractor, it's a magnet, it's repelling, emitting. And we know that it's the sun. And so it's about light and source, and it's about our inner self. It's about our mind. It's our ego. It's the essence of who we are. We've got this character standing there, and we know it's also totally associated with the North Node, which is our spiritual direction. So it's really important, yeah. And then we know it's in the sign of Aries, which is all about energy and play, and it's very inspired and new ideas, and it's about our self-identity, because, you know, it's that childhood phase where we're coming to learn each other, and we come to learn come to know ourselves through play and experimentation, exploring, creativity. So the trick now is to get those three ingredients, like you've got for a cake. You know, you've got your flour, your fats, maybe your raising agent, and, you know, some liquid, and you've got some sugar. You've got all these different ingredients, and you mix them all up together and bake them. When they come out, they do not look like those individual ingredients anymore. But you know there's something in there that's holding the structure, the flour. You can taste the sweetness. You know that something has caused it to rise. So you can see the components of what you put in, but they don't look like it anymore. So when I look at what that combination feels like, and to tell you the truth, that is the core skill in astrology. And it's the one where you have to communicate with other people and listen to other people, because you want other people to describe those things to you. And you want to be able to stretch your mind and go, okay, so if you've got your sun at the entrance to the cave and it's in the sign of Aries, how do I think that's going? What energy is that going to look like? Ooh, at a very low vibration. Ooh, I'm not sure I'd even want to know you. You're pretty intense. It's like you probably would be a good, candidate for a fascist leader or something. You know, we don't meet many people like that, do we? Or we may meet somebody who is like, they're just a light. They're alive, and they're just bouncing and they're playful. And so for me, that cake, when I put those together, I see exciting, enthused, innovative, and very much about leadership, because the sun is our leader. And if people are meeting our sun, they are meeting the essence of who we are. And, this is all very much, you've all heard the term sovereignty, and about stepping into our authority, stepping into our authenticity. And that's very much this sun in the entrance to the cave, the first thing that people meet. Do they warm to us or do they not warm to us? The sun, is it warm or is it not? So, and there are infinite recipes. You could have somebody with sun in Aries in that place, and they're all expressing it in slightly different ways. But it will all have qualities about it that you can definitely sit under that umbrella of those three symbols. So just to go over the course again, you've got 10 video lessons, 10 group calls, WhatsApp group, you've got your own personal reading, and the bonus video creating star maps. Going to start on April 17th, and it is alternate Wednesdays from 8 until 9 p.m. So if you are interested, then do message me and we'll have a call. So thank you very much for watching.